Good morning, everyone. Today is the September 20th, 2022. And today one of the biggest topic, it is the 1.26 planning. And let's just keep going. Manu and Riven, do you?
Yep, sounds good. So Riven is already sharing a screen and we can go through the items one by one. So on the top, we have a table of KEPs planned for 125, but weren't merged. So those should be easy, I hope. And then we can go through the second table and see what we can pull up.
Yeah, so just want to make sure that all of the cabs that were worked on in 125 will be worked on in 126 as well. So if the owners can just mark this column with yes, then yeah, we should be good. We will know that we'll be working on these cabs. So yeah, let's go through the remaining.
There was a meeting about CRI metrics, right, before? Last week, somebody. Sorry.
Either Peter or David, do you guys want to give a quick update on what you're planning to do for CRI stats, and then yeah, we can just mark.
Yeah, I can chime in. We are planning on working on this. We're gonna be retargeting it to alpha, or redoing alpha, and we're planning on extending the CRI to account for the metric advisor endpoint, as well as add Windows support to all of it. So those two things are criteria for alpha, and we just have to add a cat update for that.
Right. So the next one in that list is dynamic resource allocation. That work is going to continue, right? Like we have a group of folks working on it. Anyone want to add anything to it, or?
Yes, for Patrick and Kevin, we're working on that, plus a few other engineers on our side working on that. So pull request supposed to be moved from draft in next few days, if I remember correctly.
Sounds good. I think maybe we should also identify reviewers and approvers. Do you want to do this in this meeting or async? What do you think, Don, Derek?
Let's do that async. Let's just get the full list of people who.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the next one is splitting standard out and standard error log stream. So I know we had a pull request for it out. Not sure if the author is on the call today. It was mainly waiting for reviews, so we can keep it here and continue. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that they committed, even like I think they missed the deadline this time because we don't have the reviewer, but I think the engineer is on. Yeah, so it should be yes. It's our bandwidth problem. Yeah.
All right. Next one is evented plague. Someone wants to talk about it quickly. I know it's in progress. Do we have a rep? So Harshal is not on. Mike, you want to quickly give a summary?
Yeah, sure. They're going over the API doing prototypes back and forth. KEP probably needs a quick little update based on some CRI changes that.
Yeah, there is some issue on the sorry. I was just there is some issue we discovered on the kubelet side. We're trying to figure it out, but yeah, we'll be working on this in 126.
So currently being worked on diligently.
All right. Thanks, Mike. So the next one I see is just added to the list, retriable job failures.
I add this one at the end of the doc because it's not like the missing 1.25.
Right.
This is more for promote. So currently it's all the missing, right? So people working on. So it's yeah, I already added at the end
Okay.
of the doc.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Don, we can move on to the next table then, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. So the first one on the list is add node local support for pod admit handler. Ewan, do you want to open the link? It seems to be missing
I
information.
remember people from AWS presented some slides about it a long time ago, but I don't know who edited it.
Yeah, this was, I think, trying to have a way of denying pod admission on the kubelet side to protect like certain classes of workloads. We would need the original folks presenting it to kind of let us know if this is still a thing they want to pursue or have cycles to do in this time. I don't think the CAP was ever actually fully resolved.
Since it's closed here, maybe we can remove it from the table for now.
Yeah, we can poke them offline and see if anybody has Saran's email. Otherwise, I can chase it down.
Oh, I don't know why Zoom didn't allow me to switch tabs. I have to do this. Stop
Right.
sharing and resharing. Sorry about my Zoom technique.
Okay, so the next one is marked as not active. So I assume we just skip over those ones. Okay, so next two are not active. You skip fine-grained kubelet API authorization. That's a defer to. I'm not sure whether that's a recent update or it's from the 125.
Oh, it's from the previous cycle. That
okay.
is from, yeah.
Okay.
I assume it's all from the 125, but also until today, nobody really raised say, oh, we want to work on this one, come back this one. So I just take that as default. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the next one is node swap. Ilana is not around. So is there anyone else interested in like picking this up in 126? Don't I know like someone from Google was collaborating with Ilana? Do you know if they're going to be able to work on it?
We'll see if we can pick it up. Depending on what other things we'll be doing. But yeah.
Okay. All right. So we can come back to this one.
So Sergey, I'll sign to you. For now, get back to us for status. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So the next one is fixing kubelet exec probe timeouts. This one is also on you, Sergey.
Yeah, it's all about just removing this flag. I need to check the status of transitioning people, but I know recently we had this issue again on some Windows customers. So people still rely on this 1 second. I mean, on timeout that is never enforced, and when this flag will be enabled, people may, people workload may suffer. I think for now we can just keep the logic there. Keep the flag for a while.
So no work needed in 126 then? Or...
I think we can just keep it for now.
Okay, all right.
We can keep it for now. I think we might want to look at this to see if we can add some additional test cases. We've got another probe kept lower down that we might be able to include test cases for the exec probe timeout. Probably already have additional buckets.
All right. Anyone can add a note there. We can move to the next one. Okay. Swati, are you on the call?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
So I believe we still don't have enough capacity to pursue this. I wouldn't put this in for 126.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sure, so I will mark no here.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay.
Pod level resource limits. I think David, that's your cap. Is David on the call? David Porter.
Oh, hi, sorry.
Do you think you want to be able to like make progress on the pod level resource limits in 126, or we defer it?
Let me take a closer look into this. I haven't looked at this a while. Maybe can you put it as pending or something?
Okay.
Let me take a look
Okay.
if there's any interest in this.
Okay.
Thanks.
Next one is kubelet resource metrics endpoint. Again, I think this is Peter and David.
Wait, we skipped the CPU manager policy.
Yeah, that
Oh,
one
sorry,
actually,
sorry.
Kevin
Oh,
replied,
sorry.
yeah, the cap was merged and the code implementation was done in 124 as alpha. I'm just not sure if there's any plan to bring it to beta in 126. So yeah, just ask curious. Kevin on the call, by the way. Okay, no, then. Let's see.
We can poke Kevin and see.
Right. Right. But anyway, this is not it's alpha already. So if we're going to work on it, it'll be just to bring it to beta. I will keep it here and ping Kevin later on.
That's good. All right. Kubelet resource metrics endpoint.
For this one, just to be clear, is it to promote this to what, to beta, GA, or what's kind of the state of this? I'm not actually sure.
Let's see if this looks like it is only
Looking
in
at the cap,
alpha
it might
now.
be beta.
I see. Okay. Yeah. I guess me and Peter will take a look. It's very closely related to the CRI stats stuff. So we can put it down as pending also.
App armor support. Don, I think we have, yeah. a follow-up
The
for you.
team
Yeah.
or Clark agree to make this, it is promote this one, but he missed last quarter. Let me talk to him, yeah, for this one. And yeah.
All right. Next one is Vaughn about quietly insecure container UIDs, GIDs. Do we have an owner for that?
I don't think so. There doesn't seem to be any update on this cap for 2 years or so.
Okay.
Yep, there's no update.
Is it implemented yet?
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's implemented.
So I guess like we defer it unless we hear anything. I think Don, this was opened by Tim Hawkins, so I'm not sure if he's still interested in.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let me follow up on this one. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the next one is for moving the status host IPs field to beta.
Trying to remember the history on this one. This was done originally with SIG Network, if I recall, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was a regular contributor who drove this originally.
So I think it's Zimjing. I see a PR open. So it doesn't look like the alpha PR is also merged.
Yeah, the last update on the alpha PR was 2 months ago. I can go try ping Shiming, the owner of this PR, and see if I can get any update. If not, I will just mark this as like not ready for 1.6 then.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Next one is graduate CPU manager from beta to GA. Francesco or Swati?
Yeah, I will work on that. I have time this cycle. The only caveat is I need to check if there is reviewer and approval bandwidth, which is not sure because of the work on dynamic resource allocation. I will ping people and report here. But yeah, from my side, totally, I have time this cycle.
I guess one thing I'd like to clarify is like, I don't want to end up in a state like we did with device plugins. Like we should see something to completion before doing like dynamic resource stuff. So I would find it frustrating actually if we can't move the existing stuff to GA before starting like a new alpha level thing. Like perma beta is a bad thing.
I agree with you. I'm trying to help, but yeah.
Yeah, so you can put my name on here for an approver, I guess. I'm fine. I'm saying for me personally, I would give this more priority than the other because I think it's important we finish seeing stuff to GA that are actually being used in production scenarios today.
Do we want to call this out as something that should be done before we merge DRA, Derek?
I don't like coupling the two. Like
yeah.
So
Okay.
We sometimes get excited by the new alpha thing, and I just think we should make sure we finish what we start.
Agree with you, Derek. Let's make this as the relatively higher priority than other.
Yeah, we can set this to high. Right. So the next one is graduate device manager from beta to GA, like Francesco. So it's same category.
Is same category. I can, if there is, I mean, very high interest, I can do my best, but really this is really no promises in for device manager. I need to pick one, and I am a slightly better shape for CPU manager, but really, if there is interest and reviewer availability and availability, I will try to help as well. In the priority I set, however, if anyone wants to join the fun, I mean, be my guest.
Yeah, I haven't looked at this. I mean, I just glanced over a thread on Slack saying that we want to change semantic of device manager initialization. Is it part of it? Like, do we need to do it before GA?
Right. So yeah, good point. So basically, there is a bug on which a device plugin broke, but after further investigation, it seems that the behavior which is now enforced by the device manager in 25 and above is actually documented. One. So despite my initial feeling was okay, this was like a breakage, but turns out no. Turns out the device manager is doing the advertising thing, is following the documentation, the documented sequence. So the device plugin seems to be at fault. In that case, it seems that this bug is a documentation bug. Like, okay, starting from this version, we are really enforcing what is supposed to be the expected flow. I need to double check, but it really seems the case. So yeah, doesn't seem we need to an urgent fix in this area. Does not. It seems okay.
Thank you for clarification.
So this is more like a best effort. We'll try and see.
Yeah.
Okay.
From
Can you pin me? I can see. Can I find some new owner for this one? Help on this one.
yeah. Really, be my guest. We need this.
Yeah, can you pin me on?
I'm actually happy to help out in this area if that's okay with Francesco and
Cool.
if
Yeah, totally.
Thanks, Swati.
no problem.
Great. Thanks. The next one is sub-second or more granular probes. Mike?
Yeah, sure. So we think this one's ready. We did have a SIG Node review last year when it was first ready, and there was a concern brought up about probe charging, that it's off to the container, and if you do too many probes, using sub-second, that it would be just too much performance hit and too expensive. So what we're proposing now in the KEP update is to do this with a scaling approach. Say 200 milliseconds for the first probe, and then scale it up to the some other minimum like 2 seconds over a certain number of calls, like 2 or 3 times, right? So it doesn't become too expensive. And more to the point, if you get the value right on your first probe, it should cost less because you're going to actually get rid of the resource faster, right?
Hey, Mike, is this KEP mostly targeted on startup probes or readiness probes? Like, is a scenario to stand up resources quickly or detect failures?
It's both, and that's where on the readiness, that's where you'd want to make sure that you let it scale up, right?
Okay, I just curious if streaming, some sort of streaming API may be better in this case. For gRPC, streaming can be implemented, and for HTTP, we can just listen for open connection for a while. I'm curious if this was considered.
Yeah, a redesign of the probes would be nice. That wouldn't be this, but yeah, we could do a faster implementation of probes, which would make doing sub-second probes cost less, right? Just different issue, I think.
Yeah, I'm mostly worried about how many how much we can protect customers from shooting their in their feet, like if they will start using sub-second.
Exactly, and that's why we're saying we can make this scaling, and we can provide a lot of documentation to help explain to them, how not to do that, and we can stop them from doing it by only allowing it to check once quickly and then slow it down tremendously, right, in the next few times. Okay, Sergey.
Okay. Yeah.
Or we can discuss it further there, but I wouldn't want to hold this out for a redesign of probes entirely.
So Marcus says yes, it'll be worked on in 126. By the way, the CAP is still marked as draft. If it's ready for review, can we just on draft? So that's it.
Will do.
Thanks.
Right. So the next one is Keystone containers. I'm not sure if Matthias is on, but he pinged me last week that he intends to work on it. And I think we'll need to get the KEP merged really before the implementation can start. So we'll encourage folks to review it, and maybe we can discuss it over the next couple of weeks if needed. And, the one after that is QoS class resources. Marcus, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, we are definitely working on that and trying to get it onto 126. So I have a separate, in the agenda, a separate bullet point about kind of giving short update on this, like few slides. So we can do it there or even now. Yeah. But regarding, so I think we need to put reviewers at least here and approver. So at least Peter Hunt and Mike Brown has kind of raised their hands to be reviewers from the runtime side, but then from the Kubernetes side. I don't know who would be.
Maybe Ryan, do you think you can help out?
Yeah, add me to this one.
Okay, thanks.
Cool, thanks.
The last one on the list, Don, you want to talk about it? I think retriable. Yeah.
Miha's here. Do you want to talk about the?
Sure. Okay, so this is a feature that is owned by the retriable and not retriable pod failures for jobs. So it's owned by SIG apps, and it's already in alpha. But now we want to extend the scope of the feature to also modify kubelet. So let me just briefly introduce what we did in alpha. So in this feature, we want to give a little bit more of control to the users for handling pod failures. So the standard job configuration for now gives just the number of retries, called backoff limit. But often some failures can be categorized as non-retriable because, for example, it's known that for given exit codes is just like a user error or misconfiguration. And on the other hand, some pod failures are caused by disruptions which are just should be retried for free without even incrementing the counter towards the limit of retries. So this feature, the implementation is twofold. In job controller, we first of all respect the configured pod failure policy, which is a list of rules where we handle how to handle the pod failures. And another part of this feature is to unify the pod end state, so that the pod failure policy can easily match against the pod end state. So what I mean by that, we add pod conditions when evicting a pod that indicate what was the reason of the pod failure. So for now, in alpha, we introduce disruption target, which is a new pod condition type, which we add to annotate pod failures caused by taint eviction or preemption, or forgot now, but there is another scenario. And in beta, what we do is we want to extend the set of scenarios for kubelet initiated eviction. So in particular, we want to cover shutdown, graceful shutdown, which is of particular value to users. So for again, pod eviction initiated by graceful shutdown, we want to just retry for free, give the users the ability. But other evictions we also want to cover, like limits, memory limits, ephemeral storage limits, and also evictions due to admission failures. So maybe that's it for now. I mean, if there is interest or questions, then I will try to answer. There is also Aldo with me, who is also working on this with me. But I also encourage you to just maybe leave comments on the KEP update itself. So that's me.
Thanks, Miha. I think this is important. Yeah.
That brings us to the end of the table. Folks, if you have anything else, please let us know. That should be tracked.
There is also gRPC probes that was baked in 124. I'm not sure if we want to, I look at usage and we have very little usage for now, even though implementation is quite straightforward and everybody seems to be wanting it, but nobody can actually use it in production because version of 124 of Kubernetes is not widely distributed yet. So the question is, do you want to push it to GA even though we don't have too much usage, or we just want to wait another release? Any opinions? Yeah, and I presented this gRPC probes to gRPC community on their meetup, and they seems to be happy with that. But again, they don't have too many people to try it on because the version of Kubernetes is not widely in production.
I don't have strong opinion there. I don't know. Don, Derek, what do you think? Should we wait for some more data or go ahead?
I don't have a super strong opinion here either, honestly.
Okay, I will create a PR to move it to GA and see what SIG networking will say as well. But they also have some say.
So Aldo, earlier you asked, do we have any other like the SIG scheduler or SIG app or some related part joined things need the SIG Node attention? So we have to review or something like that? Because yeah, earlier you asked some question.
This side related to SIG apps is pretty much approved, that because that's also, it was approved for alpha. So what we need the approval from SIG nodes is about any changes related to kubelet. So like port admission failures, graceful shutdown, and unkills. So we need approval on that aspect, because from the kubelet we're going to be inserting pod conditions based on those errors.
Okay, can you add that capis here so we can do the planning, so we know what the proposed and the require of our review bandwidth earlier?
In the table, you mean?
Yeah, in this table. And we are later upload to the cross team, right? So the whole the Kubernetes planning table for 1.26. So, but in this table, at least we know the source of the truth from SIG Node.
Yes, yeah. Yes. The feature is already tracked because, I mean, it's one feature and SIG apps already approved. But yes, I'll clarify what's the request for SIG Node.
Yeah, if you can drop a link to the KEP and what exactly you're looking for, then
I guess you can just add them to the end of the first table just for better visibility. And yeah, then that'll be great.
And just FYI, I've already been looking a little bit at the KEP, so I can provide kind of review bandwidth for that one. Might need someone else to approve, but I can provide a review for it.
Sorry, can you clarify what you meant about the first table?
Oh no, because we currently have two tables, one from 125 and one from the caps cut from 125. So you can add the caps that need a SIG Node review to any of the table, but preferably on the first table for better visibility so that we can all see them.
Okay, yeah. Maybe the titles need to change. Should it be?
Yeah, I think I will consolidate the two tables into one just to make it less confusing.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. We'll move it and clarify the request.
Okay.
I'd like to comment on the pod has network condition feature that we worked on for alpha in 125. Do we want to track things that we want to kind of let soak for a release before moving, or do we just like leave them off the table if we don't plan to work on it actively in the next milestone?
I mean, if you're not moving, it's okay. If you're planning to add some tests or something, you can just say, okay, we'll continue to be an alpha and we'll add some tests or something.
Okay, and add it to the combined table, right?
Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Yeah, another small thing I want to bring to attention is this. I saw two PRs talking about some external cloud provider. We have deprecated setting in kubelet to mark a cloud provider, and we set external, and we want to move to config file mostly because we want to have a taint on initialization. And somebody suggested that you may want to redesign it and just provide a set of taints on kubelet start. So it's not like specific cloud provider. So we get rid of cloud provider notion completely. Is there any, is anybody here working on that? Like, do you want to convert it into KEP or just discuss it in PRs?
So we're talking about something that's more general than what we need to do for that one.
Yeah, I'm thinking like, I don't know, like we can just convert everything, like do minimal changes, but I understand there are more desires to like change more semantic of it. Like, I guess we can discuss it in PRs and convert to KEP if needed. I was just wondering if somebody on the call has strong opinion.
Yeah, I think that sounds fine, Sergey.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Please still can follow up with us through the either through this doc, ping us, or through the Slack, and we are finalizing of the 1.26 planning. And I also still see like the certain things people, we have the author say yes, but still maybe don't have the reviewer and the approver mark there for certain things. So maybe we need to finalize those things too. So next one, it is, I don't know who put this CII image pooling progress and the notification. Yeah, that's the great project. But does someone want to talk about this?
Sasha or Marcus, do you have folks from Intel to talk about that one?
I don't see Alexei for some reason on one line.
Yeah, he's missing.
Well, let's move it for next week, and I will make sure what he will show up next time.
Okay,
sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, but there's the link to the blog. I think the people please take a look. Next one, I think, Marcus, do we have any other updates on the QoS class resource cap, or we just covered at the earlier planning?
Well, I have a quick update, like few slides if you want to see those, so I can kind of remind people what it's about. So I could share if we have time for that. It shouldn't take like more than 5 minutes, but
please go ahead.
Yeah, I do. I need to be a co-host or something to be able to share, I think.
Let me give to you just 1 second. You have now.
Yeah. Okay. Find the correct window. Okay. Am I sharing now? See anything?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, cool. So yeah, quick update on the QoS class resource cap. We renamed it since 125 cycle. So it used to be class-based resources. Now we think that the best name is QoS class resources, but I don't know if that makes it any easier to comprehend. Anyway, the kind of little bit context and remind to people what this is about. So kind of trying to improve the quality of services, applications, and we are targeting certain kind of resources that are kind of inherently shared by workloads, but there is no support for Kubernetes, supporting Kubernetes to kind of handle these resources at the moment. So we're talking, for example, about cache, memory bandwidth, and disk I/O, where there are like existing methods and technologies to control those, but not in Kubernetes.
Marcus, just a quick question. For disk I/O, are you referring to the root disk, or are you referring to like mounted volumes?
block IO control, so basically the C groups, what C groups provides in Linux kernel.
Yeah, I understand that. I guess what I was trying to think here is like, the other thing that I look at with Kubernetes is that we are steering you to patterns to, you know, when you need to use disk, you stick your state on things not bound to the node, right? So what I was wondering is like, for the resources that are shared by workloads, like disk IO to me is basically like, I want fair sharing of logging, right? But like, to me, in some ways, it's an anti-pattern for pods to be abusing the local disk. So do you have like particular use cases for each of these where you could like express like beyond the just, hey, the Linux host offers this, more like how adding this along with like Kubernetes typical usage patterns would work the two better together? And I just pick on disk IO a little bit here because we were having this discussion last week actually at Red Hat, where it was like we had a user go and stick a disk IO abusive pod on the same cluster or node as another pod, and we were having to remind folks that actually that would be a bad use case generally. Like people should be writing to remote volumes, or the only time this would be happening is if the kubelet itself was pulling images and not necessarily the workload, or the workload was being abusive on how it would write logs. So for each of these, I guess I was wondering if we could like tie to the perspective of like, I don't know, a particular pod or more specific use case, I guess.
The initial use case for that was streaming application, which was streaming like large files from a local storage, from local RAIDs. So it was
so if that's
like
the case, like
priority between the different workloads.
Helping us like compare it to a particular workload is probably cool, right? Because like the most default thing I see with Kube right now is that like maybe a pod, how often a pod writes to its local log file, which is the kubelet actually writing that, is probably the biggest area where I see disk IO contention right now, or the kubelet even deciding how to do fair sharing of pooling images, or the runtime, I'm sorry. Anyway, thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, so let's go forward here. So yeah, these were the kind of either what we are kind of targeting at the moment, and where there is kind of support in the container runtimes already existing. So kind of what are these QoS class resources? So we think that this should or could be modeled as new type of resource in Kubernetes. So kind of properties of these kind of resources would be that multiple containers can share the same resource or class. So you kind of, for the container or pod, kind of assign a class ID or identifier instead of kind of reserving an amount of some capacity that can be accounted. So sort of infinite or non-accountable resources in that sense. And why? Well, again, some resources are inherently kind of class-based by design in the hardware, for example. And another use case would be simplifying user interface for some controls. So shortly about the KEF, so we have kind of split that KEF now in multiple implementation phases. So the first phase that we are kind of would like to get included in 126 is really the small first steps. So to update the CRI protocol API to be able to communicate the resource assignments, the container runtime, and then use pod annotations as the kind of initial user interface for users to communicate the resource assignments. And then there are like future phases outlined in the KEP, or like pod spec changes, resource discovery, capacity status scheduler, and access control. And the current status of the KEP is that it has been renamed. Initial implementation is kind of ready. So, and it's really small at the moment. So excluding generated code and tests, the div stat is really small. And the blog post about this is already in works and in kind of draft PR state. So if we get the KEP kind of merged, then I think we can quite quickly proceed with a like PR of the implementation and a blog post also explaining the enhancement for the wider public. So, well, I think that was it. I don't go into the details anymore. So, any more questions about this?
So let's say we were to do something like this though, right? How would you recommend segregating the resources that a pod can claim from a class from the management components on the node being able to use those resources? So for example, if we had a class-based resource for disk IO or block IO, we still probably want to be able to ensure, for example, like if we wanted to do a quality of service guarantee around pod logs, like, would you say we would no longer do that because you should just use these class-based resources? Or how would you want us to evaluate future choices? Because right now it's like, if we have this, then at some level, we don't know what we should or shouldn't take on itself inherently in Cube.
So at least one aspect of this is that I think most of these resources, they are not kind of guarantees for anything. So they are more like throttling QoS in that sense. That so, for example, in this IO, you cannot really, like in any meaningful way, to guarantee any like bandwidth to any workload. So it would be more of a like throttling.
Yeah. So if I wanted to guarantee a higher amount of disk IO to the container runtime who was pooling images or starting containers relative to the workload that's running on that node, do you have thoughts on how this class-based pattern would help or hurt that going forward? I'm just trying to think like as a node planner. I want to ensure that
Sorry, Marcus. Derek, the scenario what you are describing when the runtime is pooling images, it should be controlled on the host OS level. So like tuning the system D parameters, because we're in completely two separate hierarchies, where runtime is in own slice and where Kubernetes pods were in separate slice. So those root priorities needs to be updated on the host OS.
Yeah. So this is like,
yeah, but I still need to put fair sharing constraints among them, right? So like at the slice level at some node in that hierarchy, I'll have to set a weighting between the container runtime process somewhere under system.slice versus something under kubepods.slice here. And so I was just trying to think through like,
this one is just within the pod namespace. Oh, well, the pods are 3.
So so this, So
I bring this up because we have system reservations today, right? For CPU and memory and PIDs and some other resources and things that get abstracted away via class resources makes it less clear how I do system reservations, or do I never?
But even for those, the kind of sysadmin needs to configure them outside Kubernetes.
Yeah, I was just asking if you had thoughts on advice for how to do that.
Sorry, I have to interrupt you for time tracking. And Marcus, can you send the link? Attach this is your Slack deck link to the agenda so people can follow up more with you. And also you have the CAP, right? So we can follow up. I also need the refresh memory. I know you talk in the past, but been so long. So yeah.
Yeah, sure. I will do that. I will share this. Yeah, slides.
My question is just to be clear, or not like to be negative on this at all. It's more like if we do this, then we don't know what we should or shouldn't take on in the future, and there could be conflicts unforeseen. So I was just trying to tease this apart.
It's a great point, Derek. I think we need a node set of resources, right? A class or in subsets, right? So we can manage. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think, Derek, I think you have a great point. Actually, we got some customer use cases. They require guaranteed, like this IO for their critical workloads. So I think we need to think about that. I think this way, this cap is a cost based, so it doesn't provide guaranteed service, guaranteed this IO, or guaranteed any other resources. I think we need to think about that together with this, non-guaranteed.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on our side, we've been looking a little bit into this issue too, with like different IO schedulers like BFQ and those type of things. So it'd be interesting to understand kind of what the underlying mechanism would be, like the IO scheduler, or is it some type of secret V2 IO controllers to do some of this disk isolation work. I think that'd be also interesting. I'm not sure if that's covered somewhere.
Yeah. Just for your info, we are working on that. We're working on that path. This is not the easy problem to solve, to provide guaranteed service, but we're working on it. So we may come back with some update or some new proposals on that. Yeah.
Thanks.
We will probably organize a separate meeting with people who are interested in the topic. We can talk about details, not to spend time here.
Oh, by the way, last week we did agree have the work group, right? But that's dynamic resource allocation. Is that the work group just only for dynamic resource allocation, or it is
It was not about dynamic resource. It was about the kubelet resource plugins, what Marlo and Antanas was presenting. But people who responded to interest with making Marlo selected and scheduled already what time slot. Marlo, if you want to say a few words.
Yeah, that's Friday, 7:30 to 8:30 CST. I'll put it in the chat here. It's also in the, I also tagged it to the thread in the SIG Node Slack.
I just hope if we didn't discuss, because there's so many resource management related topic, can we take that holistic view to have the work group take that view instead of one individual, each one by one. Like Derek also already mentioned that we started so many new effort. We wanted the effort finish, existing one at least finish, and then move to next one. Instead, have a lot of alpha proposal, try to address the different problem, but without of the holistic view for the whole node resource management. I understand resource management always complicated, never finish those work, but still, I hope like every time we discuss, and there's the review at the same time to say, oh, what it is for this proposal and another proposal, how at the node, like as the node manager, earlier I like what Derek said, a load planner, and how we are going to manage it at the per node, all those kind of resources,
Yeah, Dawn, I totally agree with you. I think we really need to sort all this out, the relation between all these different proposals. Yeah, I think otherwise it's probably a little bit confusing to the community. It will be also confusing to the customers too, right?
Yeah. Thinking about we are the people on the node, even not all of us understand all the deep of those proposals, then how can user we are using, right? So user could maybe understand one proposal because that's what they exactly ask for. But please remember, they have on the node, there are all kind of the workload, all kind of resource management requirements. So yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that is the meat behind the discussion Don, that I would like to have is basically come up with one model. So it's easy for us to do different resource management models without having to shove it through Kubelet and bogging down this, the maintainers who are oversubscribed here and, the REST community. So people can go do their custom stuff without having to go through Kubelet.
Sure.
Yeah. And I think one thing that upsets me that I wish we were smarter about in the past and then we think about in the future is having ways to identify workloads that run on a node that are just management components versus like distinct workloads, I guess. I wish we had that separation from the start, but particularly as we make like workload components more flexible, like the reason I just keep bringing up like needing to reserve resources for the management stuff is like, we just want to make sure that node always stays ready, even when these other workloads are consuming things. So whether that's like protecting the runtime, protecting the kubelet, or even like protecting like a metrics exporter or the CNI plugin, like trying to think about ways we don't ignore these management components, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. So in addition to the management components, there are also some users workload, which are very critical. They want guaranteed service.
Quick question, Derek. When we're talking management, are we talking just the kubelet specific pieces such as kubeproxy, et cetera? Or are you also including daemons that may be running outside of kubelet?
I think
know we have those
anything that contributes to like the node being reported as ready. So I would say, or letting you know the health of that node. So typically I would include stuff that's commonly deployed as daemon sets today, which would be like your CNI plugin or maybe a metrics exporter. Like your node isn't ready until your CNI report's ready. So like, I don't know, I bundle the two as saying they're both management components. And at some level, yeah, I guess that's maybe the best way I can answer your question. It's like in some cases, things that are deployed as pods are still management.
So maybe tag them and reserve specific resources for the management so we don't go stomping all over them. Is that part of it as well?
Yeah.
Looks like we don't have time. Vinay, sorry we missed your topic. But thanks you provide the detailed updates in the agenda as usual. So maybe you want to using quick say what you ask for. You don't need to say status, but what's you ask for, what we can help you.
I think at this point we're mainly looking to see if when we can have containerd come in. Mike, if you have any sense of what a release date might be for the next release, which contains Revens changes, that would probably be the next trigger for making changes to the CI to pick it up. And I don't know when that might happen. I also tried out Creo, and currently it is not supported in KubeUp. If there is any interest, I could add that. I tried it on a local cluster. It seems pretty simple to do, at least for Ubuntu. David Porter, if you have any concerns.
Yeah, I was just going to say we should look into like if we can test it on the master branch of containerd currently, because to not block release.
I did for the in-place update. Yeah, I did. I tried the latest containerd from the master branch and it works end to end. I tried the Creo as well, just the latest release on local cluster that also worked. But that support for Creo is not there in KubeUp. I was wondering if there's any, if it's helpful to bring it in.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't know. Peter might be better contact for like Cryo side.
I think there is from CI perspective, like when we can merge the main PR, like you can call it mothership PR.
Yeah.
We may have CI running on master of containerd. That may be sufficient.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that. So Mike, please let us know when you think you might have a.
Yeah. Sure, we'll review it, get it in as soon as possible, and then once it's in main, we'll put it in the next 1.6 release, service release. We have agreed to do a service release at some point, hopefully before KubeCon of containerd. Okay.
Yeah, that sounds great.
All right.
Thank you.
It'll be the first time we've added features to Containerd. So we're giving kubelet some leniency here.
Great. Thank you.
And 1.7 is moving a little bit to the right. So
I think 169 would probably be it in this case.
I think so. Yeah.
Thank you,
Okay.
guys.
Okay, sorry about that. And I think I have to go to another meeting. So thank you, everyone. And yeah, thanks.